Hey fellow woodworkers, this is Frank and welcome to my shop. Are you looking for a drum sander, or have you ever thought about using a drum sander in your shop? Well, in this tool talk we're going to talk about the Powermatic 2244. It's a new tool in my shop. I'm going to go into the details of getting it, setting it up, and running it. So stay tuned to Tool Talk. Lever that opens it up. And now we have access to the drum itself. Now my machine's still not plugged in. I have it unplugged because we haven't gotten to there in the instructions. But what they are basically instructing you is to how to put this sandpaper on and off. So it's already on, so I'm going to take it off and then see how simple it is to go ahead and put on. I'll go ahead and videotape that without any editing as my first try putting it on. All right, let's go ahead and take off this belt and see how it comes off, and then we'll put it back on again. So we have to press up on this grip, kind of a spring loaded. I'm just checking it out. Okay, go ahead and remove it. Okay. Okay, so I got this unwound and I'm going to point out a couple things. Here they got a mark, and that mark looks to be the width of the sandpaper that you want to put in. In other words, when we put it in, we want to make sure that that sandpaper is at the width of the edge to this mark. And before we start to wind it out onto the drum. So here they basically have a clamp. We go ahead and line up that mark, and then we'll go ahead and spin it around. So if you can kind of see, there's a clamping. We want to get it's pretty simple. It's just spring loaded. You can push it in, put the paper in, and let it go, and it automatically grabs it. So let's go ahead and put this sandpaper in, and we'll get it to about that size that they had, right about that mark. We'll go ahead and put it on. Okay. And we'll go ahead and zoom out. And we'll wrap the rest of this paper. They say leave about a little bit of a gap, like a 1/16 inch gap. Don't overwind it. In other words, don't wind it on top of itself. And you come down, you have the same type of clip that's going to go inside, get mounted. Okay, it looks pretty good. I say you want about it's a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch gap over on this side. We pretty much have that. Okay. Well, that's how we put on the sandpaper onto the drum. Show you what it looks like here. Get some zoom out. Again, here's the tension pin. You have to get in there, release it, put the sandpaper in, and it, see if I can get a good shot there. I'm not going to get it. But I think you can get the idea. Okay. So, looks good. So the next step is the adjustment section of the instructions. And it says to adjust the depth scale. It says the depth scale indicates distance between the bottom of the sanding drum and the top of the conveyor belt. And adjustment is performed by zeroing out the scale. So what they're saying is take the adhesive strip on the drum, lower the sanding drum until it touches the conveyor belt. At that point, it should be zeroed, and then the scale here on the side of the machine would then show 0. So let's go ahead and bring the sanding drum down, and we'll make sure that it says 0 at the adjustment scale. Boy, this thing is nice and smooth, I'll tell you that. We are at bottom and it's exactly on 0. Now from here it looks like it's, from that angle, it looks like it's below 0, but it's not. And lastly, before they get into the operations, on the back side of the drum sander is a compartment. You basically push up on that, turn the lever, open it up, and voila, you have a big storage compartment here. And for me, this is pretty much where I'm going to store my I got extra sanding grits up to 220. That's where I'm going to go ahead and store my abrasives. My collection of abrasives is where I'm going to keep in this little cubby hole. Really, really solid. I'm really surprised. All right, so the next thing to do is to go ahead and plug the machine in and start up the operation. Okay, so go ahead and zoom in. Okay, so they say to connect the power, turn on the main power switch. A display will illuminate and the racetrack may flash continually, indicating the emergency stop is still engaged. So we'll go ahead and turn on the main power, and it is flashing. It's flashing, as I said, because the emergency stop is on. It says to rotate the emergency stop D clockwise to disengage the stop. It disengages the stop, and it quits flashing. Turn the drum motor by firmly pressing the switch B, illuminating J will run and on will illuminate. So we're going to go ahead and turn on. Okay, we'll do the drum motor first. You can see the drum motor is turned on, and you can see the circular pattern going around in circles. That kind of shows you that the drum is actually rotating. So here is the load factor, and the load factor will actually, let me see if I can go ahead and get a better view of that. Okay, that might be a better camera angle. So again, this turns on the drum. And this will show that the drum is actually on and is turning around. The feed logic here is how much tension it's taking to sand the piece, and of course it's taking nothing because there's really no friction whatsoever, so it's at the lowest bar. Turn off the drum sander by pushing that red button, and that'll turn off the drum sander. By pressing the emergency stop, that'll stop everything. So if you have the drum sander and the feed board, the feed table going, it'll stop it all. So let's go ahead and start the feed table. And this is how you start the feed table, is with the dial. And if you start the feed table up, it shows you the feed table is moving, and it'll tell you how many feet per minute. And there's adjustments that you can go meters per minute or feet per minute. You can really speed it up. That's about as fast as it's going to go, which is clocking in around 11 feet per minute. Looking at my table, the tracking looks pretty good. To turn on the belt, the drum sander, now you have the belt and the drum sander both rotating. Drum is on, belt sander is on, it's in inches, and the feed logic is showing that there's no resistance whatsoever, 1 bar. If you want to change from millimeters to inches, it's pretty simple. Here you zero out your actual workpiece. Stop everything. Emergency stop will stop everything immediately. Now the drum continues to rotate, so the drum doesn't have a brake on it, but the table stopped immediately. So the good thing about emergency stop, when you hit that, your work will stop. The drum may still make a few revolutions until the friction stops it. So the drum does not have a brake, but the table stops immediately. Turn it to the right to remove it. Again, it's not going to go until you turn it off, the feed table, and turn it back on. Resets from an emergency stop. Okay? And then you can run it again. Okay? So again, if you do an emergency stop, taking the emergency stop off will not run the belt. You have to turn the belt off, which is the O position down here. Wait for it to quit blinking, turn it back on, and now your table will go ahead and run. So the best way to stop your table, turn it off. Another nice feature that the PowerMatic 2244 has is what they call a feed logic. And feed logic is if you set your speed of your belt to be too fast because the amount of material you're trying to take off, it correlates with each other. If you're putting a lot of tension on this drum because you're taking a lot of material off and you have your belt feeding too fast, the computer in the PowerMatic 2244 will automatically slow down the belt speed, and in order to accommodate for the amount of material that you're taking off on the workpiece. That's really nice because otherwise you could burn up the motor, you could burn up the belt, and a lot of the new drum sanders have this type of logic built into them. But what I read on the PowerMatic, I like that feature. They have a video on their website that kind of shows how the table feed was going in pretty fast. Feed logic kicked in because it went all the way up. It automatically kicked on and it slowed down the table to a safe rate.
This is an alternate method to establishing the 0 point on a board on the 2244 sander. First, open the hood. Second, lower the sanding drum to the approximate dimension of the board. This board is approximately 3/4 of an inch, so lower it to about 1 inch. Turn on the conveyor very slowly. The conveyor should be about 3 or 4 feet per minute, and begin to feed the board under the roller. Now crank down on the sanding roller and watch for the roller to begin turning. As the roller begins turning, that is the 0 point. You're just touching the rolling surface. So go ahead and run the board through. Do it on the. Once you have the board out, set the 0 point. Set it at 0. Okay, and now turn your sander head down and make an initial cut of about 0.005. Go ahead and turn that down to 0.004. Good. Turn on the drum and begin to feed the piece. Logic control should stay near less than 6 bars. That completes your first pass. Additional passes can be made by turning the head down to a negative number and making additional passes. That's it.
Of an inch off of these boards, then I would put this to 0.3125. It would be negative because I'm going down below it, 0.031. 0.031 is it. Okay? So what we're going to do now is go ahead and start up the drum, and then we're going to start the feed rate. They said the feed rate to run about 40 to 50% of its capacity. So let's go ahead and take off the E-stop. I'm going to start up my belt. I'm going to sneak over here. And I'm going to run about 50%. So if you recall, the fastest run speed was 11. So 5.5 would be about half. I'm going to run it at probably around 5 feet per minute. Again, in the book, in the manual, they tell you you're really going to have to kind of work with this and play with it and see how well it works. So let's go ahead and we'll start the drum. And I'm going to start my shop collection. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed 2 boards on each side, and I'm going to mic it and see how well they are, how flat they are. You can see the feed logic saying, okay, the tension's pretty good. So I have the right speed for the feed at about 5 feet per minute. Okay, I'm turning everything off. I'm using the larger piece on the right side and the smaller piece on the left side. And boy, it did a really good job. It really took it down. This is 80 grit sandpaper that's inside the machine, and this is actually Padauk, so it's a very hard African wood. I'm using this to trim out my shop, if you've seen other videos I've done. So we're going to go ahead and mic this. My micrometer digital mic is actually blinking because the battery is about ready to die. But this side's miking, take it on the end. This side is miking about 0.709. And this side's miking 0.707. Wow, that is really, really good. That's 0.02 of an inch difference, with this left side being just a hair lower. That means if I really wanted to adjust this bed, I would lower this bed by 0.02 of an inch. But for 0.02 of an inch, that's pretty darn good. They say when you are going to do something wider than 22 inches, that you really do want this end of the bed to be a little bit lower, because you don't want to create a line when you flip your piece around. But that's pretty good. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take off a little bit more, and we'll go to 0.07 and see if the feed logic kicks in. So we'll take this down to 0.07, and we'll go to 0.08. Okay, 0.081, and we'll go ahead and start up the dust collection and give that a try and see what happens. We'll see if the feed logic kicks in. Put that at around 5 feet per minute. Start up the drum. It's still pretty good. Feed logic is very close to turning on and slowing the belt down, but it actually didn't do it. No snipe on the front or the back. We'll mic this out again. The right side's miking 0.665. Left side's miking 0.665. Wow. I mean, you can't get any better than that. And the collection did pretty good. I mean, there's obviously some sawdust residue onto the drum, which you're going to see. But looking at my hose, you can really see a lot of the sawdust that's in this pipe. So it's really taking the sawdust out of here. Well, that's it. We have it all assembled. We've got it run in, we've got it trued up, and I'm ready to go ahead and start using this as one of my key tools in the wood shop. So thanks for joining me on the video today. If you liked the video and it was helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up. And also, if you'd like to see additional videos, please subscribe to my channel and you'll get notifications of any new videos that I post online. So thanks again for watching the video and for sharing this experience and putting together this PowerMatic 2244. And I look forward to seeing you again in my next video. Take care, and we'll see you around the block.